The storm showed no mercy as Jack and Emily pressed on. The truck's engine strained against the relentless climb, the tires slipping on the icy road. Every now and then, Jack glanced in the mirrors, half expecting to see her, the woman, pacing toward them through the snow. Emily sat stiffly, clutching the music box as though it were the only thing anchoring her to sanity. Her eyes darted nervously to the road, the trees and the shadows that seemed to grow darker with every mile. Then, without warning, the truck shuddered violently. A deafening bang filled the cab, followed by the grinding sound of metal against asphalt. "Damn it!" Jack slammed the brakes, steering the truck to the side of the road. "What happened?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. Jack stepped out, the cold wind hitting him like a slap. He aimed his flashlight at the truck's undercarriage, groaning when he saw the shredded remnants of a tire. "Blowout," he muttered, kicking at the damaged rubber. He returned to the cab, shaking his head. "We're not going anywhere unless I can fix it. There's a spare in the back, but it'll take time." Emily fidgeted nervously. "Can't we just stay in the truck? Wait for the storm to pass?" Jack shook his head. "We don't have that kind of time. We're sitting ducks out here." Emily glanced at the trees lining the road. Their skeletal branches seemed to loom closer, as though the forest itself was inching toward them. "Let's just hurry," she said. Jack grabbed his tools and trudged to the back of the truck, muttering under his breath about bad luck and ghost stories. He worked quickly, his hands numb from the cold. Emily stayed inside, staring at the music box. Though its mechanism was gone, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was alive, watching her. The wind howled outside, rattling the truck, and then she heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible over the storm. "Emily!" Her heart stopped. She whipped her head toward the sound, but there was nothing. "Jack!" she called, her voice shaking. "Almost done!" he shouted back. But the whisper came again, closer this time. "Emily!" She bolted upright, her breathing ragged. The voice was soft, almost mournful, and horribly familiar. Her grandmother. "No," she whispered, clutching the music box tighter. "This isn't real." The truck door flew open and Jack climbed back inside, stomping snow from his boots. "Spares on," he said. "Let's get moving." Emily nodded quickly, her knuckles white as she gripped the box. Jack started the engine and eased the truck back onto the road. But just as they began to move, the headlights flickered, then died, plunging them into darkness. "Are you kidding me?" Jack groaned, slamming the dashboard. The engine sputtered, the truck rolling to a slow stop. "What now?" Emily asked, panic rising. Jack didn't answer. He reached for the flashlight, his jaw tight. "Stay here. I'll check the battery." "No!" Emily grabbed his arm. "Don't go out there." Jack hesitated, then sighed. "We can't just sit here." Reluctantly, he opened the door and stepped into the storm. Emily watched him through the windshield, her heart racing. The flashlight beam bobbed as he moved to the front of the truck, disappearing beneath the hood. Minutes passed, each one stretching into eternity. Then, without warning, the flashlight fell, its beam snuffed out by the snow. "Jack!" Emily called, her voice breaking. There was no answer. She grabbed her own flashlight and stepped out of the cab, the freezing wind cutting through her coat. The music box dangled from her hand as she approached the front of the truck. "Jack!" she called again, her voice trembling. The hood was open, but he was nowhere in sight. The only sound was the relentless howl of the wind. Then she saw them, footprints leading away from the truck and into the forest. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. But something pulled at her, an invisible force urging her to follow. Clutching the flashlight and the music box, she stepped off the road and into the woods. The forest was a labyrinth of snow and shadows. The trees stood like sentinels, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms. Emily's flashlight carved a narrow path through the darkness, but every step felt like venturing deeper into another world. The footprints led her forward, weaving through the trees. "Jack!" she shouted, her voice echoing eerily. A low whisper answered her, drifting through the air like smoke. "Emily!" She froze, her breath visible in the icy air. "Grandma?" she whispered, her voice cracking. The whisper came again, this time from behind her. She spun around, the flashlight beam catching a glimpse of something, a face, pale and fleeting, vanishing into the shadows. "No," she said, backing away. The music box began to play again, its melody faint but insistent. Emily's grip tightened around it as tears streamed down her face. "Leave me alone," she screamed. The whispering grew louder, overlapping voices swirling around her. She stumbled, her flashlight flickering. Then from the darkness, a figure emerged. It was Jack. "Jack!" Emily cried, relief flooding her. But something was wrong. His eyes were vacant, his expression blank. He stood motionless, his arms hanging limply at his sides. "Jack, say something!" He didn't respond. And then, from behind him, another figure appeared. The woman. Her hollow eyes locked onto Emily, and a twisted smile spread across her frostbitten lips. Emily screamed. Emily's scream echoed through the frozen forest. But the woman didn't flinch. Her smile stretched unnaturally wide, her pale, hollow eyes fixed on Emily. Jack stood frozen, his body an eerie silhouette against the swirling snow, as if he was a puppet held by unseen strings. "Jack!" Emily cried again, desperate for a response. He didn't move. The music box's haunting melody grew louder, filling the air with its discordant tune. Emily's breath hitched as the woman stepped forward, her boots leaving no imprint in the snow. "What do you want?" Emily shouted, clutching the music box like a lifeline. The woman tilted her head, her voice soft but cold as death. "You have what belongs to me." Emily's grip on the box tightened. This was my grandmother's." The woman's expression darkened, her eyes narrowing. "She took it, stole it, and now it calls me back." "Back from where?" Emily demanded, her voice shaking. The woman raised a hand, her fingers long and skeletal, pointing at Emily. "Give it to me, and I'll let you go." Behind the woman, Jack twitched, his head jerking as though he was trying to break free from an invisible hold. "Emily, don't!" His voice was barely a whisper, his lips barely moving. Her mind raced. She had to do something. But what? Her grandmother had said the music box was meant to protect her. But from what? And how could something that seemed so cursed protect anyone? The woman took another step forward, her presence chilling the air around her. "The box!" she hissed, her voice layered with malice. Emily's fear shifted into defiance. "You can't have it!" The woman's face contorted with fury. "Then you'll join them!" With a flick of her wrist, the forest around them came alive. Shadows writhed and twisted, taking shape. Figures emerged, dozens of them, their faces gaunt and lifeless, their eyes black as voids. They staggered forward, surrounding Emily and Jack. Panic surged through Emily as she realized the figures were people. People who had fallen victim to this cursed road, trapped between life and death. Jack's voice broke through the chaos, stronger this time. "Run!" But there was nowhere to go. The shadows closed in, their twisted faces leering at her. Emily's eyes fell to the music box. Its melody had grown chaotic, the spinning key jerking erratically. She didn't know what to do, but she couldn't give it up. Not to her, not to the darkness. "Leave us alone," Emily shouted, her voice trembling but determined. The woman laughed, a sound that sent chills down Emily's spine. "You think you can defy me? You have no idea what you're holding." Emily gritted her teeth. "Maybe not, but I know it's mine, not yours." With a surge of adrenaline, she turned the key on the music box, winding it as far as it would go. The melody screeched to life, its notes sharper, louder, cutting through the oppressive air like shards of glass. The shadows recoiled, their movements jerky and unnatural. Even the woman flinched, her smile faltering. "No!" she shrieked, her voice layered with inhuman tones. "You don't understand." Emily twisted the key again, the melody reaching a crescendo. The figures around them began to dissolve, their forms disintegrating into wisps of shadow. Jack stumbled forward, free from the woman's hold, and grabbed Emily's arm. "Whatever you're doing, keep going," he shouted. Emily cranked the key one last time, the melody now deafening. The woman screamed, her voice echoing with rage and despair as her form began to unravel. "You'll regret this," she howled, her figure fading into the storm. "The box will be your curse too." With a final, ear-piercing note, the music box fell silent. The forest around them stilled, the oppressive weight of the shadows lifting. Jack and Emily stood in the snow, panting, as silence enveloped them. "Is it over?" Emily whispered, her voice hoarse. Jack shook his head, his gaze fixed on the now closed music box. I don't think it ever will be. Hours later, the storm finally began to abate. Jack and Emily managed to make it back to the truck, the engine sputtering reluctantly to life. They drove in silence, both too shaken to speak. By dawn, they reached Weston. The town was blanketed in fresh snow, the streets quiet and peaceful, as if the horrors of the night had never happened. Jack pulled up to Emily's grandmother's house, its old sagging roof barely visible beneath the snow. Emily hesitated before stepping out, clutching the music box tightly. You sure you'll be okay? Jack asked, his voice soft. Emily nodded, though she wasn't sure herself. Thank you for everything. He gave her a small, weary smile. Take care of yourself, kid. She watched the truck disappear down the road before turning to the house. Inside, the air was warm, but it felt stifling. She placed the music box on the mantel and stared at it for a long moment. The silence was oppressive, heavy. Then faintly, the box began to play. Emily's blood ran cold as she backed away, the melody haunting and relentless. From the shadows, a whisper came.
Emily,